Hey, this is Savory, your bougie girlfriend, and thank you so much for joining us. Today, I'm going to be taking you shopping with me. Now, on this video, I've done it in two parts. And so I'm not going to just show you what shopping looks like in Panama, but I want to talk to you about shopping abroad because it is totally different. But what I want you to walk away with is no matter what country you are in, these principles that I'm going to discuss with you now are going to apply. Yes, I'm in Panama and the prices and the things that I'm going to show you are from Panama, but still, they will apply no matter where you're going. So, one thing I have learned for shopping abroad is you've got to know where to go. Before I get into that, have you hit that subscribe button? If not, go ahead and hit it now, hit the notification button, because you don't want to miss the rest of our videos. So let's talk about shopping. Shopping, and we're going to talk about food, and I'm going to also talk about some of our daily household things that we need to buy just for mere survival. So when I was coming on this trip, on this particular relocation, everyone continued to tell me, don't bring anything, they have everything. But I knew that that was not true, even before I set foot here, simply because I've lived in other countries and I know they don't have everything. No country has everything, not even of the USA, because we all have our little perks and things that we just love and treats that we love to have. And as Black women, especially when it comes to hair care, we definitely have certain brands that we are definitely interested in. So let's talk about first the kind of stores that you can go to. Now, in most countries, there are our large supermarkets, our small mom and pop supermarkets, and then there is the open market where there's no prices on anything. So I would say before you go into the open market, where there's no prices, go to the supermarkets, go to the mom and pop shops. Why? Because you want to be able first to establish some baseline on price. If you walk immediately into an open market where there's no prices, you will probably be taken. Because you know what you're going to do? You're going to hear the price and they're going to say, oh, you want to buy this watermelon? Well, it is X. And you're going to convert X into the US dollar and go, oh my gosh, that is so inexpensive. And it probably isn't. They saw your foreign face, they heard your tone, and they knew that you probably don't know the price and the price is up. Now, does every market actually add on something? Probably not, but most of them do. So be prepared for that. And if you have your baseline price that you already got in the supermarket, then you know when you come into the open market, it should be less. The open market is less. Now, in some countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, other African countries, it is a negotiation on price. They give you a price, you say no, they give you another price, you say no, and it's a back and forth until you get to a price that either you're satisfied with or they're just not yielding anymore. So I'll tell you one of my tricks that I used to do when I would go into an open market, especially on goods that I didn't know anything about, and I couldn't even find the regular price in the supermarket. I would just say nothing. So they would give me a price. And so perhaps maybe they would say to me, this is 500 naira because that's the currency in Nigeria. And I would just look at them. Wow, really? That's all I would say. So that person would now drop the price. And I would still be quiet. I mean, this is negotiations, right? I'm pretty sure most of you have taken some negotiation class when they say the person who gives the price first is always the loser. I don't know, right? Then you also hear the give the price first. But in this case, because I knew that prices were always going to be higher than what I should pay, I never gave a price. And I would do that back and forth where I just wouldn't say anything. I would look and I would listen, and then they would drop the price and they would give the next price. And so usually they would start like 500, then she would come to 300. And I would still be like, wow, wow, really? Mm. And then maybe they would drop to like another 100 down and say 200. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, now this is the time to start negotiating because they've been dropping the price. And then I would come in with something like, okay, so she said 200. I would say, okay, how about 50? And she would be shocked. What? What do you mean? That is ridiculous. Absolutely. I cannot give it to you for that price. Now I know I'm in the range. I am in the range. And so when they say they can't give it to me for 50, I would say, well, I can pay for it for 200. And so now this is when the dance would start. And so that is how it happens in an open market. And this is all over in loads of countries. So do not be afraid to negotiate. Negotiation is expected. But if you don't negotiate, you will definitely pay more than market price. And of course, you don't know what market price is because you're probably converting. And so I think it's always great to go to the supermarket and get a base price. Now, of course, there's also supermarkets, right? When you go in a supermarket, you will see everything priced, everything is laid out, just like your supermarket wherever you live. Just know you're paying a little bit more. And some things you can't get in the open market that's in the supermarket. But when you're buying things, think about not always having to buy your favorite brands, unless this is like, oh, I must use Tide detergent. And you will see how much Tide detergent is when you go to another country. Perhaps maybe there's another brand that is very similar in quality that you could use and a lot less in price. And so I have learned to kind of figure out what's the equivalent here. I'm not necessarily brand loyal on a lot of things, and the things that I am, okay, but most of the things I'm not. So think about you. Do you have to have Tide? Do you have to have Aunt Jemima's well, what is she called now? I don't even know what they call that syrup anymore, whatever it's called now, right? So you have to have that particular syrup, or whatever your brand is, Miss Butterworth or Lord Cabin. Could you not use something different? Because sometimes those brands come in and they don't even necessarily come from the US, depending on what country you're in. They could be coming from England, which is totally different, or Dubai. And so there's also a difference in the flavor. So you want to think about that also when you're like saying, oh, I must use Heinz, or I just must use whatever your brand is. Think about, was that really packaged in the US, or was it coming from another country? And therefore, you're not even necessarily going to get the flavor. So I don't know if any of you, I'm going to sidetrack. I don't know if any of you ever been to Coca-Cola in Atlanta. There's this big Coca-Cola place, and you go in there, and at the end, it's like the world of Coca-Cola, and at the end, there is you can taste Cokes from all over the world. See how those Cokes are different depending on what country. Some are sweet, some are less sweet, some are very sweet, some are. That's the same thing about when you're looking at a brand and you're thinking, oh, this is Heinz ketchup. If you don't know where that was packaged or manufactured, it may not be the Heinz that you're used to. And so that is something you want to take in consideration when you're buying. And so therefore, the taste could also be different as well. So that is when you're talking about name brands and you're in a supermarket. Also remember that I know for sure that I've gone into supermarkets and I've seen things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they have Impossible Burgers here. When I saw the price, I'm like, oh my gosh, really? I'm not really sure if I really need to have an Impossible Burger. Because remember, you're paying for this thing to be imported and duty and profit and all the things. So think of alternatives that you can have. So I'm also going to take you now and show you on my last shopping trip. I went shopping in a supermarket, and now I'm going to show you what some of my favorite things are that I bought in the supermarket and how much they cost. I hope you can see how the prices can be different. Okay, y'all, I'm going to give you today an idea of just some groceries and how much it costs compared. Now, this is Panama, and I'll kind of give you some reference to some things also that I bought because people were like, how much does it really cost? So I normally shop, even when I was in the US, on the outside of the aisles. I don't necessarily shop inside. And outside meaning fresh, on the outside, fresh food, vegetables, and fruits. That's pretty much where I pretty much shop. I didn't go too much inside, maybe just for little seasonings, but not a lot of carbohydrates, pastas, potatoes, rice. So I'm going to give you an idea. So this is one of my favorite things to eat. This is salmon, smoked salmon. I have this almost every morning. This also sells, if you were a Costco or a Sam's Club, you'll probably see this in there as well. So this sells in the regular supermarket anywhere between $13 and $16. And I think it's in Costco for $11. But it's also here at one of the stores, which is PriceSmart, which is very similar to Costco and Sam's Club. So similar, they even have some of their products. And they sell it for about $8. And then this is a papaya, right? And so I bought this papaya and this one. They were both together in one package, and they were, I think, about $4 or $5, something like that. They weren't too expensive. Another thing I love to buy all the time, because I eat every day as well, is blueberries. Now, blueberries, even in the United States, can go like really, really wonkers. And I mostly always bought my blueberries from Costco. And they would range anywhere between $6.99 and sometimes I've even paid as much as $10.99, all about season. So these were $6.99, which I thought was a pretty decent price. Berries are not very popular here. You cannot find a lot of berries. So that wasn't a big price. And I got this from PriceSmart. Now, today I decided to do some specialty shopping, and I'll show you some photos of what that store looked like, where it is kind of, think of the Balducci's of supermarkets, not necessarily a Whole Foods, but a Balducci's supermarket. So this here is blackened seasoning. I wanted to get some seasoning. I always tell everybody, bring your own seasoning. I did, but I still didn't bring enough. And so I bought this blackened seasoning, and this was $6. I think that's pretty expensive. I can't see myself buying like loads of it, but how much seasoning am I going to really use? And then this is another thing that I bought, cranberry apple cider vinaigrette dressing. I also bought in this store, the Balducci kind of store, and this was, let me see, $5.50, which I think also, sometimes when I look at specialty salad dressings, even in the States, the one that I used to always buy, this champagne vinaigrette, it was $5.99. So I would say that that was kind of comparable. But I always say, if you start buying things like this that are imported, it is going to be a lot more money. And this here is sun-dried tomatoes. I bought this. This is actually the same brand that even sells in all the supermarkets in the US. And how much was this? This was $7.50. Yikes. Yeah, that's a lot of money. I didn't realize how expensive it was. I will eat this very, very carefully. So those are just some of the things I bought. Now the big thing is what everybody's always talking about in the US are eggs, the price of eggs. So I got these eggs here, and I got these out of PriceSmart. And these are 30 eggs. And don't cry when I tell you those were like $4. So 30 eggs are about $4. So that is something that we really do see a really good savings on when it comes to eggs. So if you're looking about foods, if you're buying fresh foods, if you're buying foods that are from the place, it really kind of helps. Another thing I buy a lot of is salmon, which I am going to slow down on that because salmon is imported. And why am I buying imported fish when they have so many fish, different types of fishes here that are local and it's so inexpensive? And I'm gonna walk you through when I went to the seafood market, and you will see how fish is so expensive. Snapper is so inexpensive here. All right, so you see that some things actually are more when you go in the supermarket. Now, another thing I want you to look at is here in Panama, and in most countries, like if you're going to the Caribbean or Latin America, and even Africa, fish and is probably not as expensive as I showed you before. And so therefore, like here, even in Panama, red snapper is super affordable. It's like $2.99 a pound. And that's something that, I have to do. So I went to the fish market And when I went in the fish market, it is wide open. Everybody is selling everything. Now, the price in this particular market is already there. So it's not necessarily a negotiable market, a negotiable price. But in this market, not only is it priced, but the price is less and the fish is fresh. This is where even all the stores, all the restaurants, this is where they get their seafood from. So you know you're getting great quality and it is super affordable. So that is on the fish. Let's talk now about other pricing, and that is hair care products. I love to talk about hair care products. Those are not going to be easily for you to find. Sometimes your necessary brand, so you want to bring them with you. Now, you cannot bring enough for your whole stay, but you could bring enough just to get kind of like your starter kit, just to get you started. And then after a while, you can now start scouting for things that would match. But let me go back to some of the foods. You will be surprised how cheap fruit is. I cannot believe when I was in Nigeria that I could buy like an avocado, like a bunch of avocados for like at that time, they were like 60, the equivalent of 60 cents. And so what you'll find is some of the things that, again, that were pretty, like avocados, I don't know your supermarket, but they could be a bag for like $6. And so you will find a difference. I remember mangoes were like 20 cents in Nigeria, but when you come home, they were like $1 a piece. So you'll see those differences. So enjoy the things that are priced at a lower price. Because one of the things you could like consider, change your diet. And remember, almost everything is organic because here in most countries, they don't allow a lot of the pesticides or a lot of the ingredients into some of their products that we do in the US. And so you can get things that are a lot fresher. So you want to think about that. You want to consider how you could just change your diet and not change your diet for just, oh gosh, because you can't afford it. That's not my jam at all. Because you want to explore and try new things. So the other day, I bought this, I think it's like a seafood mix. I see a lot of Panamanians eat it as like a stew. I've never had it before. I thought, let me try it. Changing my diet, learning new things, having new taste buds. And so those are the kind of things you want to think about. What other things that you've not been exposed to or have been exposed to that was really great, but now you're actually in a country that produces it, and it could be a lot less. So shopping can be daunting, but if you have already in your mind what you want to buy before you go, have your baseline price, then you can also decide. Try not to convert in the US dollars. Try not to do that. That's why you want to get your baseline. Now, the other thing I want you to consider also is quality. Sometimes you're getting something, but the quality is not the same. We will see that with toilet paper, paper towels, napkins. The quality is just not there in most of these countries. It's just a totally different quality. And just think about that. So when you see something, you're like, oh my gosh, look at that price, it's so cheap. It probably is, but the quality is probably not matching. And that's why I always say you cannot necessarily always match dollar for dollar, because also you have to consider quality. So I hope these things were really helpful for you. I would love to hear what surprised you about pricing. I know what surprised me the most was the fact that some of these countries have a lot of the things that I wanted because they're imported, but I just was not really willing to pay the price. Oh, one more thing before I go. You want to consider if you are a cereal eater, oh my gosh, price could be all over the place. So that is something you may want to start being brand agnostic to. Thanks so much for joining us. Continue to live an elevated life, and I'll see you next time.